We've just got some breaking news in from Buckingham Palace, folks. So this statement has just come in from Buckingham Palace, and I'll read it for you. It goes on to say, His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and...
Ladies and gentlemen, just a few minutes ago, a top-secret document was delivered directly to King Charles's desk at Buckingham Palace. Initially, it was described as an attempt at family reconciliation, a proposal to reopen the door to dialogue between Meghan and the British royal family. But the moment Charles read a single line of the document, the atmosphere in the room instantly changed. The king paused. He read the sentence a second time more slowly. Then Charles removed his glasses, set the letter down on the table, and looked directly at the waiting aides. In the document, Meghan not only requested access to Windsor the reappearance of members of the royal family or the restoration of security measures. She also requested to participate in humanitarian programs associated with Princess Diana and to be recognized as a modern continuation of her mission. But what truly enraged Charles was a phrase the palace had secretly forbidden: Diana's royal heir. For Charles, this was no longer a conciliatory offer. It was more like an attempt to use Diana's memory to negotiate status access, security, and influence within the royal family. The king placed a hand on the letter and declared that the title would never be passed on to anyone. Before we reveal why just one phrase provoked such a strong reaction from King Charles, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next developments in this tense royal saga. Because Meghan wasn't the first to mention that title. Months earlier, the very phrase had surfaced in a closed-door meeting at Kensington Palace and prompted Prince William to immediately stop everyone from speaking further. Months ago at Kensington Palace, a private meeting was held to discuss an initiative to commemorate Princess Diana. There were no cameras, no press releases, just a small group of senior officials tasked with developing a humanitarian program that would reflect the values that were once synonymous with Diana. The initiative was intended to focus on the homeless, mental health vulnerable children and communities often left behind. Meghan believed she had good reason to participate. For years, she and Prince Harry had pursued activities related to mental health, social equality, and support for the underprivileged. In Meghan's view, it wasn't an attempt to usurp Diana's place. It was an opportunity to continue a part of the work that Diana had brought to the world's attention. The atmosphere in the room remained relatively calm until a senior official began reading the introduction to the proposal. He described Meghan as a potential candidate to become the modern continuation of Diana's humanitarian mission. Before he could finish, Prince William slammed his hand down on the table, not forcefully, not with a loud bang, but enough to silence the entire room. William demanded the official stop immediately. He made it clear that no one in the family was permitted to be described as Diana's successor. Not Meghan, not Catherine, not Harry, and not William himself. For William, Diana was not a vacant role. She was not a symbol to be bestowed upon someone else by the palace, nor a title to be promoted, inherited, or used to influence the public. She was his mother, and that was what made William's reaction more intense than any formal debate. Meghan, however, saw things from a completely different perspective. She felt the palace was still willing to use Diana's image in memorials, charity events, and tightly controlled speeches. But when another woman wanted to speak about isolation, media pressure, and similar trauma, the palace immediately erected a wall. In Meghan's eyes, Diana was more than just a deceased mother. She was also a symbol of a woman who had challenged the system, who had resisted silence, and who had paid the price for not fully complying with royal expectations. Harry understood that trauma. He had witnessed Meghan living under intense public scrutiny. He also recognized the similarities that reminded him of his mother. But Harry also understood why William reacted that way. For her brother, every time Diana's name was attached to a campaign, an interview, or a family political demand, Her memory was pulled out of the private sphere and turned into a tool in a new battle. The meeting ended without a consensus. Meghan left feeling rejected, not because of a lack of humanitarian experience, but because the palace feared anyone who could build influence outside their control. William left, believing he had just prevented his mother from being turned into a symbolic position that could be given to someone else. And Harry left between two viewpoints that he understood but could not reconcile. Shortly afterward, King Charles approved an internal directive. From that moment on, phrases like Diana's successor, Diana's heir, the new Diana, and Diana's royal heir were forbidden from appearing in any official royal documents, invitations, ceremonial descriptions, or proposals. It wasn't a public statement. It was a private, clear, and absolute boundary. Both Meghan and William believed they were protecting Diana, but Meghan defended her as a symbol of defiance. William defended her as a deceased mother. And now, months later, Meghan used the exact phrase Charles had forbidden. The king no longer just wanted to know what she was asking for. He wanted to know whether this was an emotional choice or a calculated act. What worried him more was who had helped her take this request so far. The king reviewed the proposal once more, then ordered his aides to immediately trace the entire process of its creation. He wanted to know when the controversial title first appeared, who had initially included it in the draft, and whether Meghan had chosen the phrase herself. Charles also requested verification of Harry's role. He wanted to know if Harry had read the entire document before it was sent, or if he had only encountered the proposal as a call for family reconciliation. If Harry had approved the phrase Diana's royal successor, the crisis would no longer be solely about Meghan. It would become a direct confrontation between Diana's two sons. The advisors involved in drafting the document were also put under scrutiny. Who wrote the description of Meghan as the continuation of Diana's mission? Who proposed access to Windsor? Who linked security concerns to the restoration of an iconic role? And more importantly, did anyone within the royal family reveal that these phrases had been banned by Charles? The possibility of inside support completely altered the atmosphere at Buckingham Palace. If Meghan was aware of the internal directive but deliberately used the banned title, it was no longer a linguistic error. It could have been a premeditated act to force a reaction from the palace. If she was unaware, it means someone within the system provided her team with enough information to build a backdoor. In either case, Charles saw an institutional risk. Meanwhile, in another room, Prince William was preparing for a pre-scheduled meeting. An assistant entered, placed a file before him, and said its contents needed immediate review. William opened the first page. He glanced through the requests regarding Windsor security and humanitarian work. But when he saw Diana's name next to the forbidden phrase, his expression changed instantly. William remained silent for a few seconds. Then he closed the file and ordered everyone to leave the room. The meeting was canceled. The assistants were instructed not to offer any explanation. As the door closed, William opened the document again and read slowly, line by line. To him, this wasn't a dispute over how to address someone. This was a negotiation about his mother's identity, involving access security and influence within the family. He immediately requested to see Charles. Meanwhile, Harry was in the most precarious position. He understood why Meghan saw herself in Diana's story. He had witnessed his wife under pressure attacked and feeling isolated. But Harry also knew how strongly William would react if their mother's name were used as part of a royal comeback strategy. Queen Camilla was the first to warn Charles that an overly aggressive reaction could backfire. She said that if the palace publicly rejected Meghan with a harsh statement, the forbidden title could instantly become a symbol of rebellion. The story would then shift from Meghan crossing a line to the question of whether the royal family was continuing to silence another woman. Charles listened, but he didn't change his mind. The three men were now facing the same crisis, each carrying a different burden. Charles carried guilt and memories that had never been fully resolved. William carried the pain of losing his mother and a protective instinct. Harry carried the conflict between the wife he wanted to protect and his increasingly distant family. Finally, Charles agreed to a private meeting with Meghan, but he didn't invite her to negotiate. He wanted to hear Meghan's explanation for why she had used Diana's name to reopen a door the palace had declared it would never open again. The meeting was arranged in a private room separate from the palace's ceremonial area. There were no cameras, no photographers. There were no public handshakes or any indication that this was a formal reconciliation. Only King Charles, Meghan, and the proposal lying between them on the long table. Charles didn't begin with a polite greeting. He pushed the document toward Meghan, his finger stopping at the line that had shaken the entire palace, the royal heir of Diana. The king looked directly at Meghan and demanded an explanation for why a phrase he himself had forbidden appeared in this document. Meghan didn't flinch. She said the title wasn't meant to usurp Diana's position, but symbolized survival courage and the ability to stand up against a system that demanded obedience. According to Meghan, Diana entered the royal family, hoping to bring about change from within. But ultimately, she faced isolation media pressure and rules that left a woman with little control over her own narrative. Meghan believes her experience shares undeniable similarities. She too entered the family with hope. She too believed she could use her position to help the underprivileged. But then she felt abandoned by the media, restricted in her speech, and forced to protect the institution's image, even when she herself was suffering. For Meghan, mentioning Diana isn't about claiming inheritance. It's her way of naming a struggle she believes both women went through. Charles listened, his expression unchanged. He said suffering doesn't create ownership of another person's identity. Whatever Meghan has been through, it doesn't justify her positioning herself to succeed Diana. The king pointed to the rest of the proposal: access to Windsor, a review of security, the possibility of public appearances, and a recognized humanitarian role. According to Charles, Diana's name is being used to weight all those demands. He accused Meghan of turning her personal experience into a bargaining tool, not just to be heard, but to restore her status, influence, and access to the royal family. Meghan countered that the palace always calls any challenge a manipulation when their control is threatened. She said the royal family is willing to mention Diana in memorials, documentaries, and censored speeches. But when another woman says she was also hurt by the system, that story is immediately seen as dangerous. Charles responded that commemorating Diana and succeeding Diana are two completely different things. One side was preserving the memory. The other was using that memory to build their own position. He asked Meghan to remove the phrase from the entire proposal. If the title disappeared, the palace might consider whether there was anything left to discuss. Meghan disagreed. She said she would only withdraw the phrase if Charles committed to continuing negotiations on security access and a limited humanitarian role. At that moment, Charles understood the meeting had failed. Not because they misunderstood each other, but because each believed the other was trying to use Diana for their own purposes. The king closed the file. He declared the meeting over. Meghan rose, but before leaving, she revealed that a public statement had been prepared. If the palace refused to continue negotiations, the entire proposal, including the controversial title, could be released to the media. Charles looked at her in silence. Then he warned that if that happened, Buckingham Palace would officially deny any connection between Meghan and Diana's historical position. No more gray areas, no more soft interpretations. Charles stepped forward and opened the door. Meghan left the room with a calm expression, but her hand still clutched the documents. And at the end of the corridor, without an assistant, without an advisor, Prince William stood waiting alone. William said nothing as Meghan left the room. He stood at the end of the hallway, where light from the tall windows shone down on the cold marble floor. No assistants, no legal counsel, No witnesses other than the two of them, each with their own completely different perspectives on the same name. Meghan paused. She knew William had been waiting there. And William knew how the meeting with Charles had ended the moment he looked into Meghan's eyes. He spoke first, his voice so calm it was almost devoid of emotion. William said he would not support any agreement that would allow Meghan's return to the royal family to be linked to Princess Diana in any way. Not the charities Diana had patronized. Not the residences that had been so closely associated with her life. Not the ceremonial items. Not the memorials. And certainly not the public image Diana left behind after her death. He spoke very slowly, as if wanting Meghan to remember each word. Diana was my mother before she became a global icon. That statement brought silence to the hallway. Meghan looked directly at William and gently replied that no one has the right to own Diana's pain message or humanitarian legacy. According to her, millions around the world have found empathy in Diana's life. A woman doesn't need to be Diana's blood to recognize the similarities between her own life and what Diana went through. Meghan said she wasn't asking permission to be Diana. She only wanted to be acknowledged that both had entered the royal family, hoping to change something, only to ultimately face unimaginable pressures. William was silent for a few seconds. He didn't deny that Meghan had suffered greatly. He also didn't deny that the media can be very cruel. But he denied the conclusions Meghan drew from all of that. Pain can create empathy, William said, but pain cannot create a title. He explained that no one has the right to position themselves as Diana's successor simply because they suffered. That's no longer empathy. It's turning a person's memory into the foundation for a new position. Then William took a pre-prepared palace access card from a file. He placed it on a small table in the hallway. It was the same card Meghan had been given for previous visits and work. William said that from this point on, all access to programs involving Diana would be thoroughly reviewed. He requested a review of all charitable projects, speeches, commercial agreements, public programs, and any documents that might place Meghan's name alongside Diana's. Not to erase Meghan from history, but to ensure that Diana's memory wouldn't be used to create confusion about her role or status. Within hours of the meeting, a series of decisions began to be made. The meeting with charity representatives was canceled. The planned visit to Windsor was removed from the schedule. The review of security requirements was halted. The humanitarian initiative related to Diana was closed indefinitely. Most importantly, all official drafts and documents were updated to confirm that Meghan would not be described as a member of the royal family, a semi-royal family member, or a representative of any part of Princess Diana's legacy. It was no longer a personal decision. It had become the official stance of the institution. Upon receiving the final notification, Meghan held the letter for a long time, but didn't open it immediately. Only after reading the concluding lines did she softly say that the palace had chosen punishment over reconciliation. However, what hurt Meghan most wasn't the closing of the royal door. It was that when she turned to Harry, she no longer saw the certainty that had always made him stand by her side. For the first time, Meghan noticed a hesitation in Harry's eyes that had never been there before. Meghan held the letter for a long time. She read the conclusion once, then she read it a second time more slowly, as if hoping she had misunderstood something. But the words remained unchanged. The palace rejected all proposals concerning the restoration of official roles' access to Windsor and any initiatives linked to Princess Diana. Meghan closed the letter and looked at Harry. Her voice was much softer than in their previous arguments. Perhaps they never wanted to reconcile. Harry didn't answer immediately. He understood why Meghan thought that way, but he also understood that this crisis had transcended the boundaries of a family reunion from the moment the phrase Diana's royal heir appeared in the proposal. Just then, a new report from the palace arrived. Assistants confirmed that a press release had been prepared before the meeting with Charles. Not only was it drafted, it had also been shared with a small group ready for release if the negotiations failed. This meant that if Meghan decided to proceed, the entire story would immediately become a public media battle. Inside the room, the advisors left one by one. The door closed. Only Harry and Meghan remained sitting opposite each other. Harry picked up the press release. He read slowly line by line. In the middle of the text, the controversial phrase remained intact. Harry set the papers down on the table. He took a deep breath before speaking. "Protecting you doesn't mean I have to agree that you are Diana's successor." The room fell silent. Meghan looked at Harry in astonishment. For years, Harry had repeatedly said that Meghan's experiences reminded him of his own mother. He had publicly pointed out the similarities between Diana and Meghan under media pressure. "So why the change today?" Meghan asked directly. "If you ever believed that I and your mother had many things in common, why are you backing down now, just because the palace is against it?" Harry bowed his head for a few seconds. He said he had never denied those similarities. Both women had faced immense pressure. Both had been hounded by the press. Both had felt alone during the most crucial moments. But Harry said that the similarity in experience didn't mean one could inherit the other's identity. "My mother was a human being, not a vacant position." He explained that over the years, almost every family conflict had come back to the same name. Interviews, accusations, security disputes, disagreements with William, the increasingly strained relationship with Charles. Diana was everywhere. Harry shook his head slightly. He said he didn't want his mother to become the explanation for all the wounds their marriage was suffering. He also didn't want Diana's name to continue appearing at the center of a new confrontation between Meghan and the family. Harry pushed the press release toward Meghan. He asked her to remove the controversial phrase and cancel the release. If the release was published, there would be no turning back. Not just with the royal family, but with William as well. Meghan stared at the pages for a long time. Finally, she took them. In the quiet room, the sound of tearing paper echoed clearly. Meghan tore the first page of the press release in half. She sat silently for a few seconds before admitting that perhaps part of her desire to return to the royal family stemmed from a desire to prove to the world that her decision to leave hadn't made her any less important. She didn't want to be remembered as someone who had left the royal family and then disappeared. Harry nodded silently. He also confessed that for years, he had inadvertently kept them both trapped in the past. Every time an argument arose, he viewed things through the lens of Diana's memories. Every time he faced pressure, he compared the present to his mother's tragedy. He realized they were both trying to distance themselves from the royal family's story, yet they were relentlessly dragging Diana to the center of it. The press release was torn. The controversial title was also removed. It seemed as though the crisis might finally be over. But the next morning, when the first newspapers were published, both Harry and Meghan were stunned. News of the banned title had appeared on the front page of most newspapers, and the controversy was no longer confined within the palace walls. The following morning, before the sun had even risen high in the London sky, breaking news reports erupted. Morning programs were interrupted. Television channels continuously updated the latest information on the controversy surrounding a phrase that just a day before had been found in top-secret palace documents. Princess Diana's name once again dominated the pages of newspapers. This time not because of a memorial service, not because of a historical milestone, but because of the confrontation between Meghan and the royal family. Within hours, British public opinion quickly split into two opposing camps. Meghan's supporters argued that the palace was once again trying to control a woman's story. According to them, Meghan wasn't being criticized for what she did, but for daring to tell her story in a way that was outside the control of the royal family. They believe that refusing that title is just the latest manifestation of a system that always prioritizes the prestige of the institution over human feelings. On the other hand, many argue that Meghan has gone too far. According to them, the memory of Diana cannot be the basis for demanding any position or recognition. One can empathize with Diana. One can continue the humanitarian values she once pursued, but no one has the right to position themselves as her successor. The debates lasted all day. Royal experts, commentators, and those who have followed the royal family for decades continuously offered opposing viewpoints. Amidst this wave of controversy, a major newspaper published a front-page image of Princess Diana on one side and Meghan on the other. In the center of the page was a single short sentence, "A legacy, not a title." The photograph quickly spread across all media platforms, but the most moving image didn't appear in the television studio. Outside Kensington Palace, a woman quietly placed a bouquet of white roses on the steps. Beside the flowers was a card written in simple handwriting. "Let her be remembered, not replaced." There were no speeches, no cheers. Only the white flowers lay before the palace gates. That very moment became symbolic of the entire controversy. Inside the palace, William watched all the news broadcasts playing continuously on the screen. He had defended what he wanted to defend. The controversial title had been removed. The door to return to the royal family had closed. But William didn't feel victorious. What pained him most was that his mother's name had once again become the center of a public battle. He had tried to keep Diana away from new controversies. Ultimately, this very confrontation brought her back to the front pages of every newspaper. At Buckingham Palace, Charles also faced a difficult decision. Many advisors suggested he issue a stronger statement to end the controversy. However, at that moment, a new report arrived. The report confirmed that Meghan had withdrawn the controversial title. Harry had also prevented the press release from being issued. This meant the confrontation could completely stop if the palace did not further escalate the tension. Charles put the report down. He understood he could still achieve a decisive victory in the public eye with a strong statement. But the price to pay could be a relationship with Harry that will never be mended. After a few minutes of reflection, Charles made his final decision. He would not humiliate Meghan in public. The palace would not launch a media counterattack. Silence, he believed, would be more valuable than any criticism. At this point, no one was truly a winner. William maintained the boundaries he believed had to be protected, but still had to watch his mother's name being dragged into a new controversy. Charles defended the royal family's position, but understood that the distance between him and his youngest son had perhaps widened further. Meghan withdrew her title, but also lost hope of reopening the door to return. And Harry, in his attempt to preserve the memory of his mother, inadvertently hurt the very woman he always wanted to protect. While the nation debated who was right, who was wrong, and who should be held accountable, Charles quietly prepared to sign the final decision. Not to punish Meghan, but to permanently close the wound that had haunted the royal family for so many years. Finally, King Charles signed the resolution, closing the entire negotiation. Meghan would not be restored to her royal role. No titles would be associated with Princess Diana. No representation rights for initiatives bearing her name. No official return to Windsor. And no further negotiations about status security or influence based on a symbolic connection to Diana. But Charles simultaneously refused to launch a public campaign of retaliation. He still left a very small door open for Harry, not as a member of the royal family, demanding back privileges, but as a son who still had the right to contact his father. William had protected the boundaries surrounding his mother's memory. But he also understood that the more he tried to prevent Diana from being used, the more her name would be dragged back into the controversy. Harry realized that protecting Meghan didn't mean making her a continuation of his mother. Meghan finally understood that a title couldn't bring the recognition she was seeking. Princess Diana didn't belong to Charles, William, Harry, Meghan, or the palace. Her legacy lives on in the public memory, in those she helped, and in her 2 children, who carry that loss with them throughout their lives. Royal roles can change. Titles can be passed down. But a person's memory cannot be given, inherited, or used to negotiate power. Meghan has withdrawn her title. The doors of the royal family remain closed. And the battle for Diana's successor ends with a very simple truth: no one can inherit a memory. Do you think Charles and William are truly protecting Diana's legacy? Or is the palace still trying to control how the world remembers her? Leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next royal stories. Thank you for watching.